Welcome back to Podcast Infinity, where we give your brain a dose to grow smarter.
That's right.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into a monument that, it really needs no introduction.
Yeah.
The Eiffel Tower.
It's iconic.
You might think you know everything about this Parisian icon.
Right.
But trust me,
Yeah.
its story is full of twists and turns
Absolutely.
that are even more riveting than climbing its stairs.
What's fascinating is how the Eiffel Tower embodies progress, ambition, and even a bit of cunning. It's not just an engineering marvel, it's a reflection of societal anxieties about change.
Okay.
And a testament to human resilience in the face of controversy.
So we're not just talking nuts and bolts here.
Definitely not. We're going to uncover the story of a man, Gustave Eiffel,
Okay.
who was more than just an engineer.
Right.
He was a shrewd businessman and a master of public relations who navigated political storms and financial scandals to secure his creation's place in history.
Okay, let's unpack this. The sources kind of paint a picture of Eiffel as this almost audacious figure, even in his early career. Mm-hmm. He was building bridges all over the world.
Yeah.
Pioneering techniques like cantilever launching,
Right.
where parts of a bridge are extended horizontally without needing support from below.
Right, and his use of prefabrication,
Yeah.
building components off-site and then assembling them like a giant puzzle, was revolutionary.
That's amazing.
These techniques, especially his work on a massive bridge in Egypt, positioned him as a leader in iron construction. And, this experience proved crucial when he had to save the Statue of Liberty from potential collapse.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Statue of Liberty. I had no idea he was involved in that.
He was instrumental in designing the internal iron framework that gave Lady Liberty her stability.
Wow.
Imagine the weight of that copper sheathing
Oh, yeah.
without a strong skeleton underneath.
All right.
It could have been disastrous.
Yeah, I see that.
This success solidified Eiffel's reputation as a master of iron architecture,
Right.
which is key to understanding his approach to the Eiffel Tower.
So then the tower wasn't just some random idea he came up with.
Exactly.
It was a culmination of all his previous experiences.
Exactly. But here's where the controversy starts.
Oh.
Eiffel didn't just win the competition to design a centerpiece for the 1889 World's Fair in Paris. He strategically manipulated the rules to favor his radical iron tower design.
Hold on. Are we saying he pulled some strings?
Let's just say he knew how to play the game.
Okay.
His main competitor, Jules Bordet, favored traditional stone
Okay.
and had submitted a design that Eiffel saw as a direct threat. By emphasizing specific criteria
Okay.
and leveraging his influence, Eiffel effectively knocked Bordet out of the running.
Wow. So this wasn't just an engineering competition. It was a political battle, too.
Absolutely. And the battle only intensified after Eiffel's design was chosen. The backlash from Parisian residents and the intellectual elite was fierce.
Really?
They saw the tower as a monstrous blot on the city's landscape, a barbaric intrusion of industrial ugliness into the heart of their beloved Paris.
I can see how that would cause an uproar.
Yeah.
They had these grand historic buildings all over Paris. And suddenly there's this massive iron structure looming over everything.
It was a radical departure from traditional aesthetics.
Right.
The sources describe this almost visceral reaction,
Okay.
with prominent figures like Alexandre Dumas and Guy de Maupassant signing a petition denouncing the tower
Oh, wow.
as an eyesore and a threat to the city's artistic soul.
But Eiffel didn't back down.
Not a chance. He was prepared for this.
Wow.
Remember his clever maneuvering during the competition?
Yeah.
Well, he also negotiated phased payments from the government for the tower's construction.
Smart.
This meant that if the lawsuits and protests managed to halt the project,
Yeah.
he wouldn't be left bankrupt with a half-built tower on his hands.
Oh, that's smart.
He was a shrewd businessman, always thinking several steps ahead.
So he was playing 4D chess.
Yeah.
While everyone else was playing checkers.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And he didn't just sit back and wait for the criticism to die down.
Right.
He actively engaged in the public debate, using his connections to publish a counter-argument in the same newspaper that printed the petition against the tower.
He was a master of public relations, wasn't he?
He understood that winning the competition was just the first battle.
Right.
The real war was for public opinion. He had to convince Parisians and the world that iron, despite its perceived ugliness,
Yeah.
could be used to create something magnificent and awe-inspiring. And that's exactly what he set out to do.
But actually building this thing, that must have been an enormous challenge in itself. Right.
Building the Eiffel Tower was a feat of engineering on a scale never seen before. One of the biggest hurdles was the site itself. the marshy ground near the Seine River. It was notoriously unstable, and building a 300-meter-tall structure on it seemed impossible.
So how did he even get started?
Yeah.
Surely he had to do something about the ground before starting construction.
Exactly. That's where Eiffel's ingenuity and experience came into play. He used a technique called the trigger method, which involved digging below the riverbed and creating a massive reinforced concrete foundation within a giant caisson.
Wow.
Imagine a huge watertight box sunk into the ground, creating a stable base for the tower's legs. This innovative approach ensured that the tower wouldn't sink or topple over despite the challenging ground conditions.
Okay, so the foundation was solid.
Yeah.
But how did he actually build the tower itself?
Yeah.
It's not like they could just stack iron beams on top of each other, right?
You're right. It was much more complex than that. Eiffel utilized his expertise in prefabrication. Over 18,000 individual pieces, from massive girders to tiny rivets, were manufactured off-site with incredible precision. Each piece was meticulously numbered and designed to fit seamlessly with the others.
So it's like putting together a giant 300-meter-tall 3D puzzle.
Precisely. And this assembly line approach not only allowed for remarkable speed and efficiency, but it also minimized risks and ensured the structural integrity of the tower.
That's incredible.
He was a true visionary.
Yeah.
But even with his meticulous planning and innovative techniques, building the Eiffel Tower was far from smooth sailing.
Oh, no.
One of the biggest challenges he faced was the harsh working conditions and the threat of worker strikes. Imagine hundreds of workers perched precariously on those iron beams, hundreds of feet in the air, exposed to the elements with limited safety measures. It was grueling and dangerous work.
That must have been terrifying. And to think they didn't have the kind of safety equipment and regulations we have today.
Exactly. The risk of accidents was high, and the working hours were long. It's no surprise that tensions rose, and workers began to demand better conditions and higher wages.
So how did Eiffel handle these strikes? Did he just ignore them or try to force the workers back on the job?
Eiffel was a complex figure. While he was known for his demanding nature and focus on efficiency, he also understood the importance of his workforce. Instead of cracking down, he took a more strategic approach. He reduced working hours, implemented some safety improvements, and most importantly, appealed to the workers' pride.
So he appealed to their sense of ownership in this grand project.
Precisely. He reminded them that they were building something truly extraordinary, a monument that would forever change the skyline of Paris and amaze the world. He promised rewards and recognition upon the tower's completion, and ultimately he managed to quell the unrest and keep the project on track.
It's amazing how he managed to navigate all these challenges, from political opposition to engineering hurdles to labor disputes. The guy was like a one-man crisis management team.
He had to be. The Eiffel Tower was his dream, his legacy, and he was determined to see it through. And, you know, when the tower was finally completed in 1889, it was a triumphant moment, not just for Eiffel, but for the entire workforce that had poured their blood, sweat, and tears into making his vision a reality.
I can only imagine the sense of accomplishment they must have felt standing there looking at this towering structure they had built with their own hands.
It was a monumental achievement in every sense of the word. But the story doesn't end there. Remember, Eiffel was a savvy businessman. He knew the tower was more than just an engineering marvel. It was a potential gold mine. He secured a 20-year concession from the city to operate the tower, and he wasted no time in turning it into a commercial success.
So he basically turned the Eiffel Tower into the world's first skyscraper-sized theme park.
Well, he had a knack for recognizing opportunities. He leased out spaces for restaurants, shops, and even a theater. He had a printing press installed on the second floor to churn out souvenir guides and postcards. And of course, the elevators that transported visitors to the top, those were a huge source of revenue as well.
He really thought of everything. It's like it was centuries ahead of his time in terms of commercializing a landmark.
He understood the power of spectacle and the allure of experiencing Paris from a completely new perspective. And the public responded enthusiastically. The Eiffel Tower quickly became one of the most popular attractions in the world, drawing huge crowds eager to marvel at its engineering, enjoy the panoramic views, and experience the thrill of ascending to its summit.
So Eiffel was on top of the world. His tower was a critical and commercial success. He had silenced his critics, and he was hailed as a visionary. But then, as you mentioned earlier, things took a dark turn with the Panama Canal scandal.
This is where Eiffel's story intersects with one of the biggest financial disasters of the 19th century. The Panama Canal project, a French endeavor to create a waterway across the Isthmus of Panama, was plagued by mismanagement, corruption, and disease. Thousands of workers died, and the project went bankrupt, leaving countless French investors financially ruined.
And Eiffel was involved in this.
He was one of the key figures. His company was responsible for constructing the canal's locks, and he personally profited significantly from the project, even as it spiraled towards disaster.
Oh, wow.
When the scandal broke, public outrage was immense. Eiffel was accused of profiteer from the misery of others, of lining his pockets while workers perished in Panama.
Wow, so this wasn't just a financial scandal, it was a moral one, too.
Absolutely. The Panama Canal scandal tarnished Eiffel's reputation, and the shadow of that scandal fell upon the Eiffel Tower as well. What was once a symbol of national pride became, for some, a reminder of greed, corruption, and national shame.
That's tragic. He goes from hero to villain almost overnight because of this association with the scandal. Must have been devastating for him.
It was a crushing blow. And to make matters worse, his German heritage, which had been mostly overlooked during his rise to fame, was now used against him. The French press, fueled by nationalist sentiments, began to portray Eiffel as a foreign opportunist who had exploited France for his own gain.
So the tower becomes a symbol of everything that was wrong with France at the time.
In a way, yes. The Eiffel Tower, which had once embodied progress and innovation, became a lightning rod for public anger and resentment. Its future was suddenly uncertain, its legacy hanging in the balance.
So what happened? Did this scandal lead to the tower's demise?
That's what many people expected. And remember, Jules Bourdais Eiffel's rival from the design competition.
Yeah.
He seized on this opportunity and renewed his campaign to have the tower demolished, arguing that it was a dangerous eyesore and a symbol of national shame.
So it's Eiffel versus Bourdais round 2.
It was a battle for the soul of the Eiffel Tower, and its outcome would determine whether it stood as a symbol of French ingenuity or was torn down as a reminder of national failure.
This is getting intense. I need to know what happens next. Does Eiffel manage to save his tower?
That's a story for our next segment.
Okay, so Eiffel's reputation is in tatters because of the Panama Canal scandal. His iconic tower is facing calls for demolition, and his nemesis is back for revenge. What does he do?
This is where Eiffel's resilience and ingenuity truly shine. He knew he had to act fast to save his creation.
Yeah.
He couldn't rely on public sentiment anymore.
Right.
So he had to find a new way to make the tower indispensable. And that's when he turned to science.
Science. How did science play into all of this?
Remember, this was a time of rapid scientific advancement. Fields like meteorology and wireless communication were just starting to emerge, and they needed infrastructure.
Right.
Eiffel saw an opportunity to repurpose the tower as a scientific research station, a giant laboratory in the sky.
But he was basically saying, hey, even if you don't like the way it looks, you can't deny its scientific value.
Exactly. He installed meteorological equipment on the tower to collect data on weather patterns, wind speeds, and atmospheric conditions. He even used it to conduct experiments on gravity and air resistance. These efforts not only generated valuable scientific data,
Right.
but they also shifted public perception of the tower,
Okay.
casting it in a new light as a tool for progress and knowledge.
That's brilliant. He turns liability into an asset. But was that enough to save the tower from demolition?
It certainly helped, but the real turning point came from an unexpected source. The French military.
The military. What did they want with the Eiffel Tower?
Enter Gustave Eiffel,
Okay.
a pioneering figure in the development of wireless telegraphy.
Right.
He was experimenting with radio waves, and he needed a tall structure to test his theories and extend the range of his transmissions. The Eiffel Tower, with its height and metal framework, was
Wow.
the perfect solution.
That was like a giant antenna.
Right, exactly. Ferrier conducted his experiments from the tower, and he quickly proved its value for military communication.
Wow.
He successfully sent and received radio signals over long distances,
Okay.
demonstrating the potential of the Eiffel Tower for strategic communication and even espionage.
So the tower that was once seen as a symbol of national shame now becomes a vital asset for national defense. Talk about a plot twist.
It's a remarkable turn of events, and it's this military significance that ultimately secured the Eiffel Tower's survival. The French government, recognizing its strategic value, renewed Eiffel's concession,
Oh, wow.
ensuring the tower would remain standing
So Eiffel's gamble paid off.
in a spectacular way. The Eiffel Tower, against all odds, had weathered the storms of controversy, financial ruin, and calls for demolition. It had transformed from a symbol of excess and shame into an icon of scientific progress and national pride.
It's a testament to Eiffel's vision, his resilience, and his ability to adapt to changing circumstances.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that even the most controversial ideas can, with time and strategic maneuvering, find their place in the world and even become beloved symbols of a nation.
The Eiffel Tower story is a reminder that innovation often comes with challenges, but overcoming those challenges can lead to something truly extraordinary.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of challenges, the Eiffel Tower faced another major test during World War II. Have you heard about Hitler's obsession with the tower?
Oh, yes. When the Nazis occupied Paris, Hitler was determined to ascend to the top of the Eiffel Tower to plant the swastika flag and claim it as a symbol of his conquest.
Wow.
But the French resistance had other plans. they sabotaged the elevators, forcing Hitler to climb the stairs if he wanted to reach the summit.
He must have been furious.
He was reportedly enraged. He never did make it to the top. And as the war turned against the Nazis, Hitler, in a final act of spite, ordered the Eiffel Tower's destruction.
He wanted to destroy the tower.
It was part of his scorched earth policy, a way to punish the Parisians and leave the city in ruins.
Yeah.
But thankfully, the German general in charge of Paris, Dietrich von Schultitz, disobeyed the order. He couldn't bring himself to destroy such an iconic landmark.
That's incredible. So the Eiffel Tower survived 2 world wars, countless controversies, and even Hitler's wrath.
It's a symbol of resilience, of defiance in the face of tyranny, and of the enduring spirit of Paris. And its story, as we've seen, is far more complex and fascinating than most people realize.
It's not just a pretty picture postcard. It's a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and the power of ideas to withstand the test of time. We started this deep dive by saying, you might think you know everything about the Eiffel Tower, but hopefully we've given you a fresh perspective on this iconic structure.
Absolutely.
It's much more than just a tourist attraction. It's a living monument to history, culture, and the human spirit.
Well said. And it continues to inspire and fascinate us to this day.
So the next time you see a picture of the Eiffel Tower, remember its remarkable journey, its battles against the odds, and its enduring legacy. It's a symbol of what's possible when we combine vision, determination, and a bit of luck along the way. And that's something we can all learn from.
Indeed. The Eiffel Tower is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, human creativity and resilience can triumph.
And on that inspiring note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this journey through the unexpected history of the Eiffel Tower.
Remember, there's always more to discover, more to learn, and more to be inspired by.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep your brain engaged.
This is Podcast Infinity signing off.